That concludes my speech, sir. Kia ora tātou.
Speaker.
I call the Honourable Member Young Jan. Ni hao ma.
Ni hao. Mr. Speaker, I support the bill. Thank you.
Bo hen hao.
Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
Now, I call the Honourable Member Sua. William Seo. Talofa lava.
Talafalava, Mr. Speaker. I'm not sure whether I'm going to be sharing my 5 minutes with the Green Party, but I'll take it anyway and see what happens. Mr. Speaker, look, I rise to support the bill as we've agreed, and we support it for the reasons that this is an appropriate development. International airports are important for our country. And we support it for the reasons that it is important, if these international airports are going to be established in other regions, that we ensure that they have a resource in terms of protecting our borders with customs officials, etc. My electorate, sir, has the Auckland International Airport, which is one of the busiest international airports of New Zealand. I refer to it as the gateway to New Zealand. Gateway to the nation, land of the young, beautiful and gifted, which is a reflection of the makeup of that particular community. And we pride ourselves, sir, and I know that my colleagues who were in the former Labour government prided in the fact that we took care of that and ensured that the resources and facilities were available at the airport to ensure that our borders were well protected, because that was an important aspect of our vision for the future. You'll recall, sir, that since this government came into power, we've questioned the way that they've cut funding to the resources, particularly at the customs level. We've questioned the way that under their watch, we've had the PSA disease, which have hurt our farmers, our kiwi fruits farmers. More recently, there has been a fruit fly found in our regions. That is of a significant concern, and I know that my colleague Damien O'Connell raised consistently with the Minister of Customs and Agriculture how the cutting of the funding when they came into government has hurt our borders, sir, in that particular regard. So, airports are important, and I know that in the last 5 years, we've had significant numbers of New Zealanders use those airports to fly away, to flee from this country. About 1,000 a week, 52,000 in the last year or so, all flying to Australia. And whilst they've been using the new facilities, SmartGate, they couldn't wait to get out of this country, sir, since this government came into power. And I know that 150,000, was it 50? 52,000. 52,000 Kiwis have fled our shores, sir, for a better life out there in Australia. So even though this government has, in the last day or two, have trumpeted how the economic recovery seems to have improved our employment rate. So if that 52,000 New Zealanders were to return to our shores, I think we would be in a much worse state than they make out to be. So I have a cousin who is leaving our shores for Australia, unfortunately. She is married, has 3 children. One of those, her oldest son, is working. The 3 of them working, sir, have been able to support their family, pay the mortgage, ensure that the younger kids get supported in their sports activities and their school. Last year, sir, my cousin's husband lost his job out in Howick as I think as a printer. And as a result of losing that job, despite the fact that his wife and their oldest son were working, could not afford to maintain their mortgage despite the low interest rates that we are experiencing. As a result, sir, in the last 2 or 3 months, the husband has travelled to Melbourne to try and find work there. He's recently come back, has got a job there, and is now ready to move his entire family to live in Melbourne. Now, they won't appreciate me naming them in the House, sir, but I'm quite saddened by the fact that despite us trying to convince them to stay, they don't believe any of the rhetoric that this government has said. They don't believe any of the promises about the brighter future, and that's why they're leaving New Zealand to go to Australia. And I think, sir, can you blame them? Can you blame the 52,000 New Zealanders who have left our shores to try and find a better life in Australia? And despite this government trumpeting and celebrating the improvement in our economic affairs, I think for a large proportion of working class communities, everyday New Zealanders, sir, they're not able to celebrate that recovery. I think if you look, for example, to the Pacific communities, overall our government is celebrating the drop in unemployment at 6%. But for Pacific communities, sir, it still remains high at 13.7%. Now it's even worse for our young people. For our young people, sir, absolutely. Airports, we're talking about economic development. Okay, so people getting jobs, people not getting jobs. And so, and as the ministers intervene, I do want to say, sir, that since he's been the minister, sir, there have been regular complaints that I've referred to the minister, often from the Muslim communities, who have been accosted at the airport. And on one occasion, I did ask the minister, can he assist in this? Because what happens, sir, is when somebody dies in the Muslim community, protocols will only permit that the dead be allowed to lie for a certain number of days. And so, one day, that's right. And so when a parent or somebody dear to them dies, they are off, sir. They are off. They are at the airport buying a ticket, getting on the first plane in, and getting on the first plane to return. And so often our officials looking at that get suspicious. But the reality is, sir, that because of cultural customs, they must do that. And so often these trips are never planned. And I know we raised it to the minister and saying, look, can you do something about certain individuals being blocked off at the airport and being investigated for suspicion simply because they haven't planned those trips? Well, you cannot plan for somebody dying, sir. And so, particularly in the Muslim culture, that's important. And I know the minister struggled with that. He struggled with understanding culture. And so, just as this government has struggled to try and convince the rest of the country, sir, that things are better. Things are not better. Things are not better, sir. And all you have to do is look at the card. Look at this card that was released today by the Salvation Army. Yep. Look, Air New Zealand also prides itself in saying that they are a #1 airline, top of their game. But so sadly, we can't say that about this government. They got a D when it came to, they got a D for child poverty, not an A, they got a D. Unlike Air New Zealand, they got a D. Children at risk got a C-. Anyway, look, I'm disappointed, sir, that I've had to speak at this particular bill. There are so many things that we could have been talking about. We could have been talking about a better vision for this country, where everybody benefits, where everybody are able to get the opportunities to get ahead. Instead, sir, we're talking about a bill that is narrow as the arrogance of this particular government. Thank you.
I call the honourable member Louise. I haven't called you yet.
Oh, come
Louise.
on.
I call the honourable member Louise Upston.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. I'm enormously proud to support this bill.